couple months ago, I started investigating why it's become so hard to afford a car. Auto loans are the fastest growing type of consumer debt, and the number of Americans behind on car payments is breaking records.
More Perfect Union is a left-wing YouTube channel in the same way that the Gravel Institute is, in the same way that Now This is, in the same way that many other left-wing YouTube channels essentially produce the same exact content over and over again that talks about the evils of capitalism. And in today's video, they expose, according to their title, a scheme, a scam from a financial firm that is conning the American people into way overpaying for cars, and I wanted to watch this video and see some underhanded, dirty tricks from a questionable financial institution and not just a stupid buyer. But unfortunately, as I started watching this particular segment, within a couple of minutes, I ultimately ended up figuring out that we have a series of really dumb buyers. People who do not look at the interest rate on an auto loan that they get, don't look at the final payoff amount, and what's really bad about this More Perfect Union segment is that it takes place in New York State, where I have purchased cars or went with people to purchase cars. So I know this process inside and out as one of the more savvy automobile buyers. In fact, you guys well know the story of me trying to buy a car back in 2021, only for January 6th to happen that very same day. Where were you January 6th? I was in a car dealership trying to buy a car, and the guy tried to sell me on a vehicle that had frame damage, and I was so upset about it, so hurt, until I looked up at the TV and I saw democracy worldwide getting frame damage. Well, in this particular instance, we do have an instance of frame damage, but we also have some very unsavvy automobile purchasers who made obvious mistakes, and yet we are told to believe that this is all on the institutions of capitalism. These people are just oppressed, and the reason why we know they're oppressed is because More Perfect Union decided to highlight black women in particular, which is a pattern of their particular YouTube channel, in order to show us how evil, bad, and possibly racist auto loans actually are. So this is what we're going to talk about today. This is what we're going to discuss. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
The story in the media is that these costs are driven by broad economic factors. While there's some truth to that, I also found something else. An entire industry ripping people off with shady loans and making billions.
It can be extraordinarily profitable to set borrowers up to fail.
They have a great business model. I mean, every penny is drained.
So one of the things that you'll notice from this segment is that it actually ends up featuring copies of the contract. And as somebody has bought a vehicle in the United States of America, and specifically in the state of New York, and has gone along with individuals while they purchase their cars to make sure that they don't get ripped off, there are some obvious red flags, obvious indicators of not a great deal that are right there in front of us that More Perfect Union has decided that they want to just kind of gloss by without you actually focusing on it. So of course, if you look at this particular contract, you end up seeing a payment, a monthly payment of $676. That is a lot of money for a monthly car payment. I definitely would not recommend you sign up for that. But the reason this payment is so high is because right here on the interest page, you could see that you have 24.49% APR on this vehicle. It is also a lengthy term. I forgot the exact length, but I think it's around 72 months. And of course, the total finance charge is $20,000. And it looks like the sale price of this particular vehicle is actually $24,000. This is an absolutely terrible deal. And I will remind you guys out there in the audience that if you are searching for a car, one of the first things that you want to do is try to get your financing straightened out before you even enter the dealership. You can do so by getting pre-approved for a certain amount at a credit union. And if you can't join a credit union because there's not one connected to your job, you can actually join a credit union called PenFed or a couple of other ones that are nationwide and don't actually require a certain occupation in order for you to join, because credit unions very typically offer the lowest interest rates on these particular loans. In addition to that, if you find yourself in a car dealership, if you find yourself negotiating on interest rates, understand that when they go to the back and they leave you alone for like a half an hour in order to waste your time, what they're trying to do is set you up for a sunk cost fallacy mindset, because the first time they go back and they get financing information, they know exactly how much they're authorized to charge you for this particular loan. Then they add a couple of points to see if you'll accept it, and even if you negotiate down, you don't get to the lowest rate. So in that scenario, what you want to do is walk out of the dealership and have them call you back in order to offer you better terms. But again, you will set yourself up better for success if you already work out your financing prior to you showing up to the dealership, and then you hide that information from the dealer until you get your final price. One of the things that I did when I went to buy a car was say that I was financing, then they handed me the forms, and I just mimed filling out the forms while consistently asking questions and of course haggling down the price, only to reveal at the end point that I already had my own financing lined up. But again, I'm the kind of person, when I go to buy a car, target the exact vehicle that I want a week in advance, understand everything I need to know about the dealership when they mark stuff down and whatnot, know the blue book value, and obviously these individuals did none of those steps, but they're trying to portray themselves as victims. But if you can believe, this segment actually gets significantly worse and more embarrassing.
I honestly felt pressure to buy it because my family needed a car. We didn't have a way to get around.
Taniqua Cross works as a teacher's aide at a school for disabled kids. A couple of years ago, she needed to buy a car.
Santa Motors right there on East Ridge. When you first go there, it's okay. They greet you, they treat you like family.
She picked out a 2014 Dodge Durango, and the dealer presented her with a sales contract. It said she'd pay about $2,000 down, and then for the next 5.5 years, her car payment would be about $670 a month.
So this is our alleged victim at this moment in time of this predatory lending system. And as you can see, based on the contract right here, this is in fact the same exact loan that they showed us in the B-roll earlier, where she had the 24.49% interest rate. But I also want you to take note of the fact that the total purchase price for this Durango is about $44,000. And this is despite the fact, and again, it's slightly out of focus, that there are 77,000 miles on this car. So obviously, this woman is well overpaying for the vehicle. If she had looked it up on the blue book value, she would have known this, but she signed the contract out of absolute idiocy, and this is the setup, this is the prelude to us supposedly needing to feel bad for this woman. And I want to be clear, I do in fact feel bad for her to a certain extent, but this is 100% on her, because even when she talks about the minimum monthly payment on this particular vehicle in relation to how much money she makes, you can understand that this is idiocy.
I get paid weekly, so that's 2 of my checks gone. It worked at first, but then I was like, this is too much.
To afford the monthly payment, she started making DoorDash deliveries.
Now look, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a math wizard, I'm not an expert on finances, and this is definitely 100% not financial advice. In fact, you probably need to go to a professional financial advisor in order to hear this information from a professional, but I'm willing to bet that if you have to take an extra job in order to pay off your car payment, that is not a good car payment. That is not a good car loan that you have. And again, $44,000 on top of the $2,000 that she put in for the down payment, thus making the total $46,000, sounds like an objectively horrible loan that this woman should bare minimum get out of, if not refinance. But then we find out that the car wasn't even in good condition because she didn't check the Carfax.
But soon the car had problems. First, the steering column broke, then the transmission. Then, one day,
I was out doing DoorDash, went to come to a stop at the light and brakes popped, and cars went straight through the light and hit another car.
The brakes failed. The car was totaled. In the aftermath, she discovered something shocking.
I Kelly Blue Booked it, and it told me that the Durango that I had at the time, at the price value, was $6,000 to $13,000.
So we hear about the brakes popping, and then after the accident, after it was totaled, she goes and gets the Kelly Blue Book value, which of course you should have gotten prior to showing up to the dealership, because what she finds out is that the car's value was between $8,000 and $13,000. Again, this is when she crashed it, not necessarily when she bought the car, and in reality, she had signed up for a loan. Again, the terms on that contract that were shown to us earlier were the terms of her loan. loan for $24K as the purchase price, with $20K in interest on top of that. And also, and this is absolutely crucial, as they're trying to make me feel sympathetic for this woman and not think that she's objectively a dumb person, 2 smoke detector chirps went off in this woman's home during the course of this interview.
At the price value was $6,000 to $13,000.
Guys, how am I supposed to take this seriously? How am I supposed to view this woman as a victim when she's doing the thing in her house and actually has not one, but 2 smoke detectors that need a 9-volt battery change in said detectors? I guess what we learned from this particular segment is that the real N-word isn't the one that they pretend to be offended by when somebody with Tourette's ends up hurling it out involuntarily. It's actually 9, as in 9-volt battery, because apparently mentioning that in a black household is in fact the real crime. And it's absolutely insane, because when I first heard about this like stereotype or this meme, I thought it was a joke. And the reason I thought it was a joke is because I have black friends. I've been over to their homes many a times while I was in college, people who didn't have a lot of money. And you know what I never heard absolutely ever in any of my black friends' homes? So when I heard about this stereotype on the internet.com, my first thought was, this isn't real.
This isn't a thing. This isn't real. This isn't real.
But as Anna says, it is real. It is actually reality.
It's real, guys. It's real.
At the price value was $6,000 to $13,000.
Guys, I'm not adding these in post-production. These are sounds from the actual More Perfect Union video where they're trying to convince me that it's not this woman being an absolute idiot, not looking at the terms of the contract that she signed, where it's not her not looking at the blue book value of the car that she wanted to buy, which again was a 2014 Dodge Durango with 75,000 miles on it with multiple mechanical problems. It's in fact the finance company that was just mean and bad and possibly evil white racist that took advantage of her as an individual who was just unsuspecting. But the thing is, this tells me the exact opposite information. This tells me that we are not dealing with somebody who's interested in thinking, and despite the fact that they consistently want to portray her as a victim, that chirp is driving me insane. And the crazy thing is that the More Perfect Union film crew who had to show up to this property knew what was going on. They heard that smoke detector chirp. These are ultra wealthy white progressives that are working at this job while living off their parents' trust fund. And while they're in this woman's house hearing that chirp, knowing it's being captured on the audio, they're not thinking to themselves, hey, maybe we should tell her to disconnect this detector. Maybe we should film somewhere else. They're like, well, we don't want to embarrass her. We have no expectations for this woman. She's an absolute idiot. So we're just going to film this interview with these chirps and act like this is perfectly normal, like a cultural difference or something, when in reality, it just makes me question everything about this woman's judgment, her thought pattern, and again, her intelligence.
The dealer had put her in a $24,000 loan. Including interest, the total sale price was $46,000.
It pisses me off. Why am I paying triple for a car loan? There's no way a loan should be that big for a car that's not worth that much.
Again, we hear another chirp right there, and she's like, why am I paying triple the value of a car for a car loan? There's no way. And the answer to that question is actually in that sound right there. Listen a little bit closely, and you will understand that there is something wrong with your brain that does not allow you to think at the level that you need to be thinking at. And here's the crazy thing. In the state of New York, for auto loans, we actually do have usury laws that cap them at 25%. This woman is paying 24.49%, which means if we did not have that law, specifically for people like her who lack all levels of intelligence, don't look at the terms, see a $676 monthly payment that takes up 2 of her checks and thinks, well, I'll just DoorDash to afford this car that I originally bought to get to my job, that I actually can't afford this car based on the money that I'm making on. This is obviously obviously a you problem, an intelligence problem, in that you're lacking said intelligence. And again, how are you not being driven crazy by that chirping? Again, we're like 3 minutes into this particular video, and I'm already completely against this woman 100%. And the way that the More Perfect Union people are talking down to her is absolutely embarrassing. So first and foremost, this white guy films part of it in his own kitchen, and notice there's no chirping in that kitchen because this guy actually knows how to change a 9-volt battery in his smoke detector. But listen to his verbiage. Listen to how he's describing what happened in this particular scenario and how embarrassing it actually is.
The dealer had put her in a $24,000 loan. The dealer had put Taniqua into a loan that was deeply underwater.
The dealer put her into the loan. The dealer did this to her. The dealer signed her up for this. Again, she has no agency at all whatsoever, according to More Perfect Union, because this is the soft bigotry of absolutely no expectations, and it's absolutely humiliating. And again, I understand financial literacy, big problem in this country. It's something that I try every now and again to discuss with you guys on this channel. And in fact, I will promote other channels that go over this stuff so you don't end up in these traps. And by the way, if you are a young military age male that lives on a military base, you just joined up, very often you end up getting suckered into these bad loans by the car dealerships that are near your base. So again, these principles should be taught to people at a certain age because obviously they get trapped in these particular loans, and a lot of them are very unsuspecting and they don't have adults to guide them. But this woman is an adult. This woman should know better. You should be able to look at the final terms. And by the way, even if you're 18 years old and you're on that military base, you should be able to do this as well. But it's more understandable when you're young. But what the hell is her excuse? Again, she knows of Kelley Blue Book. She was able to look up the value on Blue Book after her accident. All she had to do was look it up prior to her accident and realize that she was being significantly overcharged for this car.
Credit Acceptance started calling her and her grandmother, who'd been required to co-sign the loan.
My grandma just got to the point where she answered it. Oh, you owe $28,000 on the car, but we willing to drop it down to $5,000. And now here it is, she paying $100 a month. Still to this day. Every, I think, 5th of the month, they take $100 out of her account for it.
Guys, you can actually hear the difference in the level of sound of each of these smoke detectors, which makes me think that there are not 2 detectors. There's actually 3 of them going off simultaneously within shot of the microphones that they're using to film this interview. And it's really making it difficult for me to focus on the substance of this, but I do think the substance is absolutely important. And to be clear, More Perfect Union does a breakdown of Credit Acceptance, and essentially what they're trying to pitch you is that their business model is to get you to sign up for this loan. Then the car gets repossessed. They end up selling it to another individual on bad terms. The car gets repossessed, and essentially they're making all their money on the financial penalties that you get for signing up for these auto loans. Now again, if you want to have a conversation about that, if you want to talk about deceptive business practices and whether or not that should be legal, then yeah, we could have that conversation for another day. But the 3 chirps, they're just too much. And again, this woman explaining that her mom, an adult, somebody who's older than her, also co-signed this loan, and yet she still got a 24.49% interest rate. That's absolute madness. When you get a co-signer, that's supposed to lower your rate.
They sit there, joke with you, crack jokes with you. Whole time they doing the dirty work behind your back. You don't even know what's going on. Why you got one person standing here smiling in your face and the other one back there typing up the whole thing?
So again, this woman really genuinely and truly does not understand the art of salesmanship at a car dealership and why it's very important to not get stuck at the dealership. Say you're going to leave at a certain amount of time, set a deadline for yourself, because if you don't do that, they try to make you feel better. They try to talk you up. They'll even suggest ordering food for you and whatnot, or maybe you could order food to the dealership because they're trying to get you to basically feel the sunk cost fallacy. So that way you end up feeling like you have to purchase a car because you killed your whole day. And of course, this is all offset by the freaking chirps that are going on while this woman is talking. But to get to the end point of this particular saga, she decides that she wants them to give her her money back for this car because dealership bad.
I would say pass a law, because there's no way you should be able to triple a loan for a price of a car that's lower than that. You should be able to give the loan at that price of the car. If that's the car value, that's the price I should be paying. For myself, I would like my money back.
Now look guys, debt is a big problem in this nation. Automobile debt is a big problem in this nation. And a lot of people agree to terrible terms on a vehicle, which is one of the reasons why the average price of said vehicle is so high, especially when you're looking at monthly payments. That being said, the person that they brought here to be the victim is an idiot. She's not a victim. She is somebody who is too dumb to function in society, and the way that they're talking down to her throughout the whole entirety of this More Perfect Union segment is proof positive that they understand that as well. The way that they filmed this interview in her home with that chirping going on without saying anything shows us that More Perfect Union has absolutely no expectations for this woman, and the reason I'm coming down so harsh on her is because I actually do expect her to function in society. I do expect her to learn from this rather than consistently play the victim. So yeah, while this credit acceptance organization seems kind of sketch and I would avoid financing with them, the fact is you guys really need to look at the terms, look at your interest rate, and realize 24% way too high. I know automobile interest rates are high right now and you could end up paying 6% easily even with good credit, but even in this market you never want to pay over 10% because cars are a depreciating asset, and of course you don't want the term extended out into all these different various lengthy monthly periods. If you can't afford the car in 3 years or 4 years on a car loan, don't get the car. Get a cheaper car. What are you even doing? And again, look at the blue book, look at financing deals, look at everything you need to know before you get into a vehicle like this, and that way you won't end up in this disaster like this woman where More Perfect Union is talking down to her like she's a child. Now that's all I really have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about maybe one of the dumbest people I've ever seen in one of these segments. Till next time.